Captain Lee Tae-ho stood on the bridge of the exploration ship New Seoul, staring at the massive screen before him. The stars looked the same as they always did, but something was different today. His communications officer, Kim Bo-ram, had picked up a strange signal 3 hours ago. "Captain, we are getting closer to the source," said navigator Song Hai-won from her station. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel. "The signal is definitely coming from a ship." Tae-ho nodded slowly. They were far from any known trade routes. What was another ship doing out here in the empty space between star systems? He walked over to Kim Bo-ram's station. "Can you tell what kind of ship it is?" he asked. Bo-ram frowned at her screens. "The signal pattern looks familiar, sir. I think it might be Villani." The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew about the Villani. They were a proud warrior race that lived in huge cities connected underground. Humans had met them several times before for trade and diplomatic talks. They were not exactly friends, but they were not enemies either. "Villani ships don't usually travel alone," said Chief Security Officer Yoon Ji-ho. He stood near the weapons control station, ready for anything. "They always move in groups of at least 3 ships. Maybe something happened to the others," suggested Dr. Park Min-ae, who had come up from the medical bay to see what was going on. She was the ship's expert on alien biology and had studied the Villani before. Tae-ho made his decision. "Song Hae-won, take us closer. But stay alert, everyone. Ji-ho, keep our shields ready, but don't power up weapons unless I say so." As the New Seoul moved closer, the alien ship came into view on the main screen. It was definitely Villani design, with the curved hull and crystal-like structures that their ships were famous for, but something was wrong. The ship was drifting without power and there were dark scorch marks along its sides. "No life signs detected on sensors," reported Science Officer Oda Un. "But the ship's hull is still intact. Whatever happened, it wasn't a complete destruction." "Any response to our communications?" asked Tae-ho. Bo-ram shook her head. "Nothing, sir. Their communication systems might be damaged." Tae-ho thought for a moment. Leaving the ship alone felt wrong. If there were survivors, they needed help. If there were no survivors, the ship might contain important information about what had happened. "Prepare a boarding team," he ordered. "Ji-ho, you're in charge of security. Take Dr. Park with you in case there are injured Villani on board. And bring Chief Engineer Choi Woo-jin to check their systems." 20 minutes later, the boarding team was ready. They wore full environmental suits since they didn't know if the alien ship still had breathable air. The shuttle bay doors opened, and the small craft moved across the dark space between the 2 ships. The Villani ship was bigger up close. Choi Woo-jin found a docking port that would work with their shuttle, and soon they were inside the alien vessel. Their lights cut through the darkness as they moved down the empty corridors. "The air is breathable but cold," reported Dr. Park, checking her instruments. "Gravity is working, but life support is running on emergency power." The ship felt dead. Their footsteps echoed strangely in the curved hallways. Villani ships were usually filled with the sounds of their people talking and working together. This silence was disturbing. They found the first bodies in what looked like a common area. 3 Villani lay on the floor, their tall, thin forms still. Dr. Park checked them with her medical scanner. "They've been dead for several days," she said quietly. "No signs of violence. It looks like they just collapsed." They found more bodies as they moved through the ship. All the same, no wounds, no signs of fighting. They had simply died where they stood or sat. "This is very strange," muttered Choi Woo-jin as they reached the ship's main computer center. "I'm detecting some kind of biological contamination in the air filtration system. Something spread through the ship's atmosphere." Ji-ho was checking the security systems when he stopped suddenly. "Wait, I'm getting a life sign reading from the captain's quarters." They moved quickly through the ship's upper levels. The captain's quarters were larger than the other rooms, with curved walls covered in what looked like carved symbols. And there, in the corner, they found her. She was curled up in a ball, her long arms wrapped around her knees. She looked like the other Villani they had seen, but she was breathing. Her skin had a pale blue color, and her large eyes were closed. She looked young, though it was hard to tell with aliens. "She's alive," whispered Dr. Park, moving slowly toward the figure. But barely. Her life signs are very weak. The alien woman's eyes opened suddenly. They were large and dark like deep pools of water. When she saw the humans in their environmental suits, she tried to move away but was too weak. She said something in the Villani language. Her voice was rough and tired. "Boram, are you getting this?" asked Jiho into his communication device. From the new soul, Kim Boram's voice came through their speakers. "Yes," she's saying, "stay away and don't let it spread. She thinks she might be infected with whatever killed the others." Dr. Park slowly pulled out her medical scanner. "I need to check her condition. Can you tell her we want to help?" Boram spoke in the Villani language, her words coming through their communication system. The alien woman looked surprised. She had not expected humans to know her language. She responded weakly, and Boram translated. "She says her name is Velara. She's not the captain of this ship. She was a passenger, a keeper of stories. She says all her people are dead, not just on this ship but everywhere. She says she is the last." The words hit the boarding team like a physical blow. An entire species gone. And this woman, Velara, was the only survivor. "We need to get her back to our ship immediately," said Dr. Park. "She needs medical attention, and we need to understand what happened here." As they carefully lifted Velara and prepared to return to the new soul, Teho's voice came through their communications. "Boarding team, what's your status?" "We found one survivor, Captain," reported Jiho, "and I think we found something much bigger than we expected. None of them knew it yet, but this moment would change everything. Not just for them, but for how humans and aliens would relate to each other in the years to come." They had found the last member of an entire species, and what they chose to do next would define who they really were as humans. Dr. Park Mine worked quietly in the medical bay as Velara slept on the examination table. The alien woman had been unconscious for 6 hours since they brought her aboard the new soul. Her breathing was steady now, but Park was worried about the strange readings on her medical scanner. "How is she doing?" asked Captain Lee Teho as he entered the medical bay. His voice was soft so he wouldn't wake their patient. "Better than expected," Park replied, looking at her charts. "Whatever killed her people, she seems to have some natural resistance to it. But she's very weak from being alone on that ship for so long." Teho looked down at Velara. In the bright lights of the medical bay, he could see her features more clearly. She was tall and thin with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer slightly. Her hair was long and white, almost like silver threads. Even sleeping, she looked sad. "Have you learned anything about what happened to her people?" he asked. Park shook her head. "Not yet. I've run every test I can think of. But Villani biology is very different from human biology. I need her to wake up and tell us what she knows." Chief Engineer Choi Woo-jin appeared in the doorway. "Captain, I've been working on preparing quarters for our guest. The problem is, I don't know what she needs." "What do you mean?" asked Teho. "Well, sir, Villani live in groups underground. They're used to being close together all the time. Our individual quarters might feel wrong to her. Also, their air mixture is different from ours. More nitrogen, less oxygen." Teho thought about this. "Do what you can, Woo-jin. We'll figure out the rest when she wakes up." Just then, Velara's eyes opened. She looked around the medical bay with confusion and fear. When she saw the 3 humans standing near her, she tried to sit up quickly but was too weak. "Easy," said Dr. Park, moving closer. "You're safe now. You're on a human ship." Velara stared at her with those large, dark eyes. She said something in her own language, her voice still rough from weakness. "Boram," called Teho into his communication device. "We need you in medical bay for translation." Kim Boram arrived, within minutes carrying her translation equipment. She set it up quickly and spoke to Velara in the Villani language. Velara responded, but her words came slowly. "She wants to know why we helped her," Boram translated. "She says humans and Villani were never close friends. She doesn't understand why we didn't just leave her ship alone." Teho stepped forward. "Tell her we don't leave people to die alone in space. That's not who we are," Boram translated. And Velara looked surprised. She spoke again, longer this time. She says she doesn't know how to repay us. In Villani culture, when someone saves your life, you owe them a debt that can never be fully paid back. Tell her she doesn't owe us anything, said Taiho firmly. We helped because it was the right thing to do. This seemed to confuse Velara even more. She talked with Boram for several minutes, sometimes getting emotional. Boram listened carefully, asking questions when she needed to understand better. Captain, Boram said finally. She's telling me about what happened to her people. It's terrible. What happened? Asked Dr. Park. Boram looked sad as she translated Velara's words. A sickness came to their homeworld about 2 months ago. It spread through their underground cities very quickly because they all live so close together. The sickness attacked their nervous systems. They would just fall down and die within hours. Was it a natural disease? Asked Taiho. Boram asked Velara, who shook her head and spoke quickly. She doesn't think so. It appeared too suddenly and spread too fast. She thinks someone made it as a weapon, but she doesn't know who. How did she survive? Asked Dr. Park. She was traveling to meet with another alien species as a cultural ambassador. Her job was to tell the stories of her people to others. She was in space when the sickness hit her homeworld. By the time she got the emergency messages and returned, everyone was dead. The humans stood in silence for a moment. An entire species gone in just 2 months, and this woman had lost everyone she had ever known. She says she is a keeper, continued Boram. That means she holds all the important stories and history of her people in her memory. With her people gone, she is the only one left who knows their culture, their songs, their traditions. Velara spoke again, her voice getting stronger but also more desperate. She says when she dies, everything about the Villani will die with her. Their entire civilization will be forgotten. She says, this is the worst thing that can happen to any people. Cultural specialist Oh Dayun had arrived during the conversation. She had been listening from the doorway. Captain, if she's really the only keeper of their entire culture, we have a responsibility here. What kind of responsibility? Asked Taiho. To help her preserve what she knows. These stories, songs, and traditions, they're all that's left of an entire species. If we don't help her record them, they'll be lost forever. Velara seemed to understand some of what Daun was saying. She looked at the human woman with interest and spoke to Boram. She wants to know if Daun is a keeper too. Boram translated. She can sense that Daun understands the importance of preserving culture. Daun nodded and spoke directly to Velara, even though she knew the alien woman couldn't understand her words. Tell her yes, I study and preserve the cultures of different species. I understand how important her knowledge is. When Boram translated this, Velara's expression changed. For the first time since they found her, she looked hopeful. She spoke at length to Boram, who listened carefully. She says she has been afraid that her people's memory would die with her. She's been trying to find a way to preserve their stories, but she didn't know how. She asks if we would really help her do this. Captain Taiho looked around at his crew. Dr. Park was nodding. Engineer Choi looked determined. Specialist Daun had tears in her eyes. Tell her yes, said Taiho. We'll help her preserve everything she knows about her people. And tell her something else. What, sir? Asked Boram. Tell her that she doesn't have to carry this burden alone anymore. She has help now. When Boram translated these words, Velara began to cry. But they weren't tears of sadness. For the first time in months, they were tears of relief. She had found something she thought was lost forever, hope. 3 days had passed since Velara woke up in the medical bay. She was stronger now, able to walk around the ship with Dr. Park's help. But Captain Lee Tae-ho could see that she was still very sad and lost. The crew had been working hard to make her comfortable. Chief Engineer Choi Woo-jin had modified one of the larger storage rooms to serve as her quarters. He changed the air mixture and installed special lights that matched the kind her people were used to underground. The atmospheric controls are working perfectly, Choi reported to Captain Tae-ho as they stood outside Velara's new room. But I'm worried about something else. What's that? Asked Tae-ho. She seems afraid to be alone. Every time someone leaves her room, she gets nervous. I think it's because Vellani are used to always being with others. Tejo nodded. He had noticed this too. When Velara was alone, she would sit in the corner and rock back and forth, making soft sounds that Kim Boram said were Vellani songs of mourning. Maybe we should arrange for someone to be with her more often, suggested Tejo. Dr. Kang Subin, the ship's psychologist, had been studying Velara's behavior. She joined their conversation. Captain, I think her problem is deeper than just being alone. She's suffering from survivor's guilt. She feels bad for being alive when all her people are dead. Is there anything we can do to help? Asked Tejo. Give her purpose, said Kang. Right now she feels useless. We need to show her that her survival has meaning. Cultural specialist. Oh Dayun had been spending hours each day with Velara, recording her stories and songs. She came up to the group looking excited. Captain, you need to hear what I've learned, she said. The Vellani culture is amazing. They have thousands of years of history stored in oral traditions. Velara knows epic poems that take days to tell completely. That's good, but how is she doing personally? Asked Tejo. Better when she's sharing stories, said Da-Yun. But there's something else. She's been asking about our culture too. She wants to understand how humans live and work together. This gave Tejo an idea. What if we invite her to join us for meals? Show her how we interact as a crew. That might work, said Dr. Kang. Social meals are important for building connections. That evening, Quartermaster Lim Sung-ho prepared a special dinner in the main dining hall. He had spent hours researching Vellani nutritional needs and had created several dishes that should be safe for Velara to eat. I had to guess about the spices, Sung-ho explained to Dr. Park. But I tried to make things that would taste familiar to her. When Velara entered the dining hall with Kim Boram, she stopped suddenly. The entire senior crew was there, sitting around one large table instead of their usual smaller groups. They had left an empty chair for her right next to Captain Tejo Boram, translated as the captain spoke. We would be honored if you would share our meal with us tonight. Velara looked nervous but sat down carefully. She watched as the crew began passing dishes around the table, each person serving others before themselves. Tell her about this food, Tejo said to Boram, pointing to one of the dishes Sung-ho had prepared. Boram explained, and Velara tried a small bite. Her large eyes widened with surprise, and she said something quickly. She says it tastes like a food her people used to make for celebrations, Boram translated. She wants to know how Sung-ho knew to make it this way. Sung-ho smiled proudly. I studied the nutritional data from her medical scans and tried to create something that would remind her of home. Velara looked at Sung-ho with what seemed like gratitude. She spoke again, longer this time. She's asking if she can tell us about the Vellani celebration where they ate this kind of food, Boram said. Please, said Captain Tejo. We would love to hear about it. For the next hour, Velara told them about the Festival of Deep Roots, when her people would gather in the largest underground chambers to celebrate the growth of their cities. Boram translated as Velara described the beautiful songs, the dancing, and the way families would share special foods. As she talked, something changed in Velara's voice. She became more animated, using her hands to help tell the story. For the first time since they found her, she seemed alive. The festival would last for 7 days, Boram translated. Each day, different families would take turns telling the ancient stories of their ancestors. Everyone would listen and learn. Navigator Song Haiwan asked, Did your family have special stories too? When Boram translated the question, Velara's expression became proud. She spoke for several minutes, and Boram had to ask her to slow down. She says her family were the keepers of the first stories. They knew the tales of how the Vellani first went underground, how they learned to work together, and how they became one people instead of many tribes. Medical Officer Shin Young-suk looked interested. Could she tell us one of those stories? Velara seemed pleased by the request. She stood up from her chair and began to speak in a rhythmic way, almost like singing. Even without translation, the crew could tell this was something special. Boram did her best to translate as Velara told the story of the Great Joining, when 7 different Vellani tribes had to work together to survive a terrible earthquake that collapsed many surface areas of their world. The story was full of brave heroes, difficult choices, and the discovery that they were stronger together than apart. When Velara finished, the dining hall was quiet. The story had been beautiful and moving, even in translation. "That was wonderful," said Captain Tejo. "Thank you for sharing it with us." Velara sat back down, and Boram translated the compliments from the crew. But then Velara asked a question that surprised everyone. She wants to know if humans have stories like this, too, Boram said. "Stories about how your people learned to work together." Lieutenant Commander Han Dong-wook, who had been quiet during dinner, spoke up. "Tell her about the building of the first space stations, how people from different countries had to learn to trust each other in order to live and work in space." Dong-wook told his story. Velara listened carefully. She asked questions through Boram about how humans dealt with disagreements and how they made decisions as a group. "She's comparing our social structures to hers," observed Dr. Kang quietly, to Captain Tejo. "She's trying to understand how we function as a community." The dinner lasted much longer than usual. Stories were shared back and forth, with Velara becoming more comfortable as the evening went on. She even laughed a few times when security Chief Yoon Ji-ho told a funny story about a training accident. As the evening ended and people began to leave, Velara spoke to Boram one more time. "She says this felt like home," Boram translated. "She says she had forgotten what it was like to be part of a community that cares about each other." Captain Tejo felt something warm in his chest. "Tell her that she is part of our community, now, for as long as she wants to be." When Boram translated this, Velara's eyes filled with tears again. But like before, they were good tears. For the first time since losing her people, she felt like she belonged somewhere. 2 weeks had passed since that first dinner together. Velara had become part of the daily life aboard the New Soul. Every morning, she would join Dr. Park in the medical bay to help organize research data. Every afternoon, she worked with cultural specialist Oh Da-yoon to record more stories from her people. And every evening she sat with the crew for dinner, sharing tales and learning about human customs. Captain Lee Tae-ho noticed that Velara was getting stronger each day. She walked with more confidence now, and her pale blue skin had a healthier glow. More importantly, she smiled sometimes when the crew told jokes or shared funny stories about their lives. "She's adapting well," observed Dr. Kang Subin as she and the captain watched Velara help Quartermaster Lim Sung-ho prepare lunch. "But I think she still feels like a guest instead of a member of the crew." "What do you mean?" asked Tae-ho. "Watch how she acts. She's always asking permission before doing anything. She still thinks she's temporary, like we might leave her somewhere when we reach the next port." This worried Tae-ho. He had grown fond of Velara and couldn't imagine abandoning her anywhere. But before he could think more about it, alarms began ringing throughout the ship. "Captain to the bridge," came Navigator Song Haiwan's urgent voice over the communication system. "We have incoming ships and they don't look friendly." Tae-ho ran to the bridge with Dr. Kang right behind him. When he arrived, he saw 3 unknown vessels on the main screen. They were moving fast and had their weapons powered up. "Are they responding to our communications?" asked Tae-ho. "No, sir," replied Kim Boram. "They're jamming our signals and moving into attack formation." Security Chief Yoon Ji-ho checked his weapon systems. "Captain, these look like pirate ships. They probably think we're an easy target because we're a research vessel." "How long until they reach us?" asked Tae-ho. 5 minutes, said Song Haiwan grimly. Tae-ho thought quickly. The New Soul wasn't a warship. They had some defensive weapons, but not enough to fight 3 pirate vessels at once. "Can we outrun them?" Chief Engineer Choi Woo-jin's voice came through the communication system from the engine room. "Not with our current engine setup. We're built for long exploration trips, not speed." Just then, Velara appeared on the bridge. She had heard the alarms and come to see what was happening. When she saw the pirate ships on the screen, her whole body tensed. She spoke rapidly to Kim Boram, who was still at her translation station. She recognizes those ship designs, Boram translated. She says they're Krell pirates. Her people fought them many times before. Does she know anything that might help us? Asked Taiho. Velara listened to the translation and then spoke at length, her voice becoming more confident and strong. She says Krell pirates always attack the same way, Boram translated quickly. 2 ships come from the sides while the third attacks from above. They try to disable the engines first, then board the ship. That's useful information, said Jiho. If we know their pattern, we can prepare for it. Velara spoke again, and this time her voice had the tone of someone giving orders. She says there's another thing. Krell ships have weak points in their hull armor near the engine sections. If we can hit those spots, we can disable them quickly. Lieutenant Commander Han Dong-wook looked at the tactical display. She's right. I can see the weak points she's talking about, but we'd need someone who knows exactly where to aim. Velara walked over to the weapons control station. She looked at Jiho and spoke to Boram. She's asking if she can help operate our weapons. She says she fought Krell pirates before and knows how to target their weak spots. Taeho made a quick decision. Do it. Show her how our weapons work. Jiho quickly explained the basic controls to Velara while Boram translated. Velara's long fingers moved over the control panel with surprising skill. She adjusted the targeting system and powered up the weapons in a way that Jiho had never seen before. She's optimizing our weapon efficiency, Jiho said with amazement. How does she know our systems so well? Through Boram, Velara explained that Vellani technology worked on similar principles. She had been a military advisor before becoming a cultural keeper. The pirate ships arrived exactly as Velara had predicted. 2 came from the sides while the third dropped down from above the New Sol. But this time the crew was ready. Target the side ships first, ordered Taeho. Velara, you have weapons control. Working together, Velara and Jiho fired at the exact weak points she had identified. The first pirate ship's engines exploded in a shower of sparks. The second ship tried to turn away, but Velara predicted its movement and hit it before it could escape. The third ship, seeing its companions disabled, tried a desperate direct attack on the New Sol's bridge. But Navigator Songhai won, following. Velara's shouted directions that Boram translated rolled the ship at just the right moment. The pirates' weapons missed completely. Velara fired one more precise shot, and the third pirate ship's weapon systems went dark. All 3 ships are disabled, reported Jiho with excitement. Their engines and weapons are offline. The bridge crew cheered, but Velara just stood quietly at the weapons station. When the celebration died down, she spoke to Boram. She says, she's sorry she had to use violence, Boram translated. Her people believe that fighting should only be used to protect those you care about. Captain Taeho walked over to Velara. Tell her that she just saved all our lives. We're grateful for her help. When Boram translated this, Velara looked surprised. She responded quickly. She says she was just protecting her family. Boram said. She considers the crew of this ship to be her family now. The bridge went quiet. Everyone understood what this meant. Velara wasn't just a passenger anymore. She had chosen to fight for them, to risk her own life to save theirs. Lieutenant Commander Han Dong-wook stepped forward. Captain, I think we need to make this official. What do you mean? Asked Taeho. She's one of us now. She should have an official position on this ship. Taeho nodded slowly. It was the right thing to do. He spoke to Boram. Ask her if she would accept the position of Cultural Preservation Officer and Tactical Advisor aboard the New Sol. When Boram translated the offer, Velara's eyes widened. She spoke for a long time, her voice full of emotion. She says yes, Boram translated with tears in her eyes. She says she would be honored to serve alongside people who have given her not just a home, but a purpose. Security Chief Jiho started clapping, and soon the entire bridge crew joined in. For the first time since they found her, Velara was not the last of her kind waiting to die. She was the first of something new, a bridge between species, a keeper of memories, and a valued member of their family. As the disabled pirate ships drifted away, Velara looked out at the stars through The bridge windows. She had lost her old family, but she had found a new one, and this time she would fight to protect it. 6 months had passed since the pirate attack. The new soul was now heading back toward Earth, its long exploration mission finally complete. But this return journey was different from any other the crew had ever made. They were bringing home something precious, not just scientific data or mineral samples, but a living piece of galactic history. Velara stood in her quarters, looking at herself in the mirror. She wore a modified version of the standard crew uniform, adjusted to fit her tall, thin frame. On her collar were the insignia of her official rank, Cultural Preservation Officer. But more than that, she wore a small pin that each crew member had given her, a symbol that she was family. A soft chime at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called, speaking in perfect human language. Her voice still carried the musical accent of her people, but she had learned to speak without needing Kim Boram to translate. Captain Lee Taeho entered with a data pad in his hand. "Good morning, Velara. Are you ready for the big day?" Today, the new soul would reach Earth orbit. Velara would meet with human government officials and scientists. More importantly, she would see the Cultural Preservation Center that had been built specifically for her work. "I am nervous," Velara admitted. "What if the people of Earth do not accept me as the crew has?" Taeho sat down in the chair across from her. Over the months, he had become like an older brother to her. "The people of Earth will love you just as we do, but even if some don't understand at first, you have proven yourself. You are not just a survivor anymore. You are a teacher, a protector, and a bridge between our peoples." Velara smiled. It was something she did often now. "I have been thinking about my old life. Before the sickness came to my world, I traveled to many places to share the stories of my people. But I always went home afterward. Now, I carry my home with me." "What do you mean?" asked Taeho. "Home is not a place," said Velara. "It is the people who care about you and whom you care about in return. This ship, this crew, you are my home now." The ship's communication system crackled to life. Navigator Song Haiwan's voice filled the room. "All crew to observation deck. Earth is coming into view." Velara and Taeho made their way to the large observation deck where the entire crew had gathered. Through the huge windows they could see a blue and green world growing larger as they approached. Velara had seen pictures of Earth before, but seeing it in person took her breath away. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Dr. Park Min-ai came to stand beside her. "Wait until you see the sunrises. I think you'll love them. And the food," added Quartermaster Lim Sung-ho with a grin. "I can't wait to show you real Korean barbecue." Chief Engineer Choi Woo-jin pointed to the space stations orbiting Earth. "See that large one there? That's where the Cultural Preservation Center is located. They built it in zero gravity because they thought you might be more comfortable there." Velara was touched by this thoughtfulness. Humans continued to surprise her with their kindness and consideration. As they docked with the space station, Velara felt both excited and sad. Excited to see her new workplace and meet other people who cared about preserving cultures. Sad, because she knew this meant saying goodbye, at least temporarily, to the crew that had become her family. The docking bay was filled with people waiting to meet her. Scientists, government officials, reporters, and cultural specialists from dozens of human universities. But Velara only had eyes for one group standing to the side. They were children, about 20 young humans, ranging in age from 8 to 16. They held up signs with pictures they had drawn of her and messages of welcome written in both human languages and attempted Volani script. "Who are they?" Velara asked Kim Bo-ram, who was staying close to help with any translation needs. "Students," Boram replied with a smile. "They've been learning about your culture in their schools. They wanted to meet you and hear some of your stories." Velara's eyes filled with tears of joy. This was something she had never expected. Human children wanted to learn about her people. The official ceremonies went well. The human government formally welcomed her as a cultural ambassador and granted her permanent citizenship with all the rights and protections that came with it. The scientists were amazed by the depth of knowledge she carried about Villani biology, technology, and history. But the moment that meant the most to Velara came that evening. The crew of the New Soul had arranged a private dinner in one of the station's smaller dining halls. It was just like their dinners aboard ship, one big table with everyone sitting together sharing food and stories. Lieutenant Commander Han Dong-wook stood up with a glass in his hand. "I would like to make a toast," he said. "6 months ago, we found someone we thought needed our help. But it turned out that we needed her help just as much. Velara has taught us what it really means to preserve culture, to value stories, and to find family in unexpected places." Everyone raised their glasses, but before anyone could drink, Velara stood up. "Wait," she said. "I have something to say too." The room grew quiet as she looked around at each face, these people who had saved her life and given her a new purpose. "When my people were dying, I thought the universe was ending. I thought everything good and beautiful was being destroyed. But you showed me something I had forgotten. Life continues. Love continues. Stories continue. You didn't just save one Villani. You saved the memory of all Villani by giving me a place to keep that memory alive." She paused, struggling with the emotion in her voice. "In my culture, we have a saying, 'The tree that stands alone will fall, but the tree that grows in the forest will reach the sky.' I was a tree alone, ready to fall. But you made me part of your forest. Now I can reach the sky and spread seeds for new trees to grow." She raised her glass higher. "To the humans who gave the last Villani not just survival, but a home, a family, and a future. To the people who showed the galaxy what it truly means to be human." As they drank the toast, Velara looked around the table one more time. Tomorrow, she would begin her new life as Earth's first alien cultural preservation officer. She would teach human children about Villani history. She would work with scientists to better understand her people's technology. She would help create policies for how humans should interact with other alien refugees they might find. But tonight, she was exactly where she belonged, at the dinner table with her family, sharing stories and laughter under the light of Earth's stars. The last of the Villani had found her place in the universe. And in doing so, she had helped humans understand something important about themselves. They were not just explorers or fighters or builders. They were a people who could look at someone completely different from themselves and say, "You belong here with us." That was the greatest strength of humanity. That was why the galaxy would be a better place with humans in it. And that was why Velara's story would be told for generations to come. Not as a tragedy of loss, but as a celebration of what could be found when different peoples chose to build bridges instead of walls. In the end, she had not just been given a place at the dinner table. She had helped set that table for countless others who would come after her,